Is that right?
They find it all.
Well, they even call me the big.
Is that the one where they do the
I say things all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So
I like
when you
different
look at
sizes.
Jazzy Jeff and the
So
Fresh
I give my friends books to read. I give them.
Handling your business.
This episode of Handling Your Business is sponsored by Commerce Bank.
City. It's been reborn and rejuvenated by a whole new industry, and it is called gambling. We are here in the old Boardwalk National Bank, which has been a part of the bank mergers, deceased. But out of the ashes has come the Casino Control Commission and a new industry that has given new vitality to Atlantic City. I'm here with its newly appointed chair, Ms. Linda Cathcart. Welcome to Handling Our Business.
Thank you.
Tell us a
Glad to
little
be here.
bit about your role here with the commission.
All right. I was named in November to be the chair of the Casino Control Commission, which is the entity that regulates casinos and regulates almost every aspect of casinos, from licensing the people that work there, licensing the casinos themselves, registering employees that work in the hotel areas. We promulgate regulations that talk about how the types of games that are played, how they should be played, what the casinos should look like, what security measures there should be. So really a wide range of regulations covering the industry.
What does the industry mean by way of revenues to the state of New Jersey?
Well, it's a very vital part of the revenues. Under the Casino Control Act, which was adopted about 25 years ago, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary, revenues, an 8% gross revenue tax is paid into the Casino Revenue Fund. And those funds go to help senior citizens. They help to support our PEAD program, our Lifeline Credit program. So very important programs for seniors and disabled.
In terms of revenue, what does that mean to the Treasury for the state of New Jersey?
It means about $349 million annually into those programs and into the Casino Revenue Fund.
So for a city like Atlantic City, what does that translate into their operating budget?
Well, actually, that comes from a totally different section of their budget, but it means about that the casino industry is picking up about 80% of Atlantic City's budget. So the cop on the street, 80% of his salary is supported by the revenues from the casinos.
Now, beyond just counting the revenues and licensing the casinos and making sure that the employees have integrity, it also, you have an economic development role within this process.
Absolutely. We work very closely with a sister agency called the Casino Redevelopment Authority. And they support all sorts of programs for casinos, from the casino revenue funds to help Atlantic City, to help areas outside of Atlantic City. I noticed just yesterday they adopted a new resolution that we're going to have street performers on the boardwalk in Atlantic City during the summertime hours. And that's going to be supported through the casinos, but through the Casino Redevelopment Agency.
In what ways has the new industry of gambling and casinos helped old residents of Atlantic City? Because, I mean, before I'm speaking Freudianly, but before gambling, the city was in a state of disrepair.
Yes.
What has it meant since?
It's meant tremendous new housing starts over in the Gardner Basin, the inlet area of Atlantic City. We have seen new housing, and all that housing has already been bought. So it's just amazing in terms of the revitalization and sort of the refurbishing of Atlantic City. It's also meant that we are beginning to attract retail opportunities here. Over by the Sheraton, as you come off the expressway, is a new set of stores called The Walk. And we're going to have retail shopping there, which I think will bring a lot of people down to Atlantic City for other reasons, just besides gambling.
Well, I noticed on our way in here on the boardwalk, the stores were open.
Yes.
Now, this time of year, that doesn't usually happen. And I mean, what didn't happen before
Right.
gambling.
Yes.
So now they're open year-round?
They're open year-round. You can look out on the boardwalk any day of the week and see people walking up and down the boardwalk. In fact, when we had the last blizzard, they actually had to clear a pathway along the boardwalk for people to walk, but we still had people out there.
How much of an employment base does the industry represent for this city?
Well, probably statewide, we have about 50,000 employees in the casinos down here, and they come from a variety of areas, from Atlantic City. People commute from far away as Mercer County, Essex County. We have people coming down here that commute down. So it really is an important economic factor for the state.
You may have heard the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is looking at the issue of both riverboat gambling and racetrack gambling. What do you think that will mean to New Jersey?
Well, obviously there will be some impact. We believe, however, given what Atlantic City has to offer, given the beach, the boardwalk, given the retail shopping, given some of the new things that are going on down here, that although there might be some impact, that it's going to be minimal. We have a new casino which is going to open this summer called the Borgata, which is going to be a full spa and hotel rooms, and a lot of people make Atlantic City a destination. We still have a lot of day trippers, but a lot of people come down and stay because the hotel rooms are in great demand.
What balance a lot of critics of gambling often cite some of the ill effects of gambling. How does this commission help to offset some of that through whatever programs?
We do a lot of work with our Compulsive Gamblers Association, and one of the programs that we have here, which was passed a couple years ago, is a self-exclusion program, where if somebody has a problem, they can come either here to our offices or to the Division of Gaming Enforcement in Trenton and put themselves on a self-exclusion list. And that means that if they come into the casino and they're recognized that they're asked to leave. If they win, unfortunately, they have to forfeit their winnings. But we feel that it's a good start in helping people to kind of help self-police themselves. We have about 140 people on that list right now, and we're hoping to really better publicize that so that people that do have a problem have an option.
As we look at the industry, what do you see for the future of gambling in Atlantic City?
Well, I think we're going to see continued growth. Every year, with the exception of this past February because of the snowstorm, revenues are up. And because of that, we see expanded growth in terms of hotel rooms. We expect another 3,500 hotel rooms here in Atlantic City. We have a lot of people that come down to use the Atlantic City Convention Center. So there's a lot of ancillary benefits, and I think that it's only going to get better.
So in your opinion, with the downturn in the economy, has the industry's revenues been somewhat recession-proof?
I would say that they have. There was some impact after 9/11. People were concerned about traveling, but then our numbers went up, and I think it was because people felt comfortable that they could get in their car and drive to Atlantic City. They didn't have to get on a plane, and that they felt that they were close to home, and I think that helped.
How much does the state pay attention to the industry's growth? And with the commission, how much juice do you have with the industry?
I have a very good working relationship with the industry, and we realize here in New Jersey, and Governor McGreevey realizes that this is a very important industry for us. So a lot of attention is paid, and we're constantly looking at ways to help the casinos do their job better. And we look at things like regulations and try to make, while keeping within the confines of the law, try to ensure that there's integrity in the system. And I think that's very important.
Well, we see that with the controls in place and the proper regulation, that casino gambling has not been a gamble, but a sure gambling on gambling. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in the city of Philadelphia, in the federal government, there are large deficits that are looming and that threaten the very way of life that we in America have. One of the strategies to overcome some of those deficits have been riverboat, casino, and racino gambling. I'm here with Representative Evans, who is in his 12th term, 23 years in Harrisburg. So to say he is an insider and a knowledgeable individual about public policy is an understatement. Welcome to Handling Your Business.
Thank you very much.
Give us a little evolution about the legal lottery and then Riverboat Gambling, and now Racinos?
The lottery started back in the 60s under Governor Milt Schaap. And the purpose of the lottery, obviously, at that time was to do something about addressing the questions around senior citizens in terms of property tax rebate, prescription drugs, things of that nature. And we were one of the first states of the 50 states to be in the forefront in terms of the lottery. Now today, there's a lot of states that have lotteries for all different kind of purposes: education, property tax reduction, you name it, to help the general fund. So it started on the basis of targeting towards a specific audience of senior citizens. It has grown with all kinds of programs, and I would encourage you to buy your lottery tickets, because it certainly helps all our senior parents. From there, over the last 5 or 6 years, under Governor Ridge, there was some discussion now under Governor Rendell. It started discussions about riverboat gambling. And Governor Rendell, who at the time was Mayor Rendell, felt very strongly about doing something about the waterfront, building up the business, making it look similar to Baltimore in their inner harbor. And unfortunately, it didn't pass at that particular time, because Governor Ridge wanted a referendum with the issue of gambling, so that never happened. Now that Mayor Rendell is now governor, one of his strategies have been around the question of slots at the racetracks. We have a number of racetracks throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And those various racetracks provide revenue, but they're having a difficult time because of Atlantic City, West Virginia, Delaware, other places where dollars are leaving the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So Governor Rendell has made, under his education and property tax cut proposal, a suggestion about what he calls slots at the tracks, putting slots at different racetracks around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to draw people there. The aspect of where riverboat gaming comes in, because that has been a discussion for the last 4 or 5 years. There's a number of people, including myself, that thinks the issue of riverboat gaming should be a part of what I call our long-term strategy. That money should be directed in areas of economic development, areas of education, and we should build in the necessary safeguards around ensuring that the necessary counseling, people who may unfortunately develop gambling problems. In addition to, we should build the right kind of safeguards to ensure that the money is not used in any illegal way regarding political contributions, things of that nature. So slots, gaming, those are some of the things that are there. They haven't passed the General Assembly. There will be a lot of hearings about those two particular initiatives. And then at the end, we'll have to work out some kind of compromise.
I titled you an insider, but in truth, you are a change agent. I mean, you think outside of the box. You've challenged conventional wisdoms about inner city development. How much do you think the Racino concept can help our budget to do those kinds of developments that you hold dear to your heart?
I think the opportunity is sky's the limit. And I know that's a constant thing that people say, but I think it is. I think those sources of revenue, and that's what they are, maybe slots at the track or riverboat game, those are sources of revenue, no more different than the sales tax, no more different than the income tax. Those are sources that, if used properly, you can make investments in our economic infrastructure, you can make investments in terms of our communities and our neighborhoods and our education system. But we should also, look, magically they won't solve the problem, because they're driven based on people using them. I mean, nobody forces anybody to go to the racetrack. No one forces anybody to go to casinos. So you need to understand, it is a volunteer aspect that people will go to. But when you're in a time where your revenue bases are shrinking, it's one of the issues that at least should be on the table. But we should also be very sensitive to build in the necessary mechanisms to protect against people who may abuse gambling.
One of the things, when you talked about building in mechanism, will the debate be in part around how those proceeds will be used? Will that be something?
That will probably definitely be debate. I mean, you know, nobody likes to raise money. Everybody likes to spend money. And I would say this to you and to your listening audience. I don't take, whenever you start talking about the issue of gambling or gaming lightly. I understand it is very serious. It is not something that I think should be dealt very cavalier. It is something that we all should be sensitive when we start talking about introducing the aspect of more gaming. But I mean, if you look at Atlantic City, West Virginia, Delaware has slots at the track, New York. I mean, if you look at every place around us, now I'm not using that as a rationale, because every place around us has it, and that means we should have it, it will go through a full debate of the General Assembly in the House and the Senate, and then we will decide. That's the way this process works. But in my view, it is a source that is long overdue that we should start to consider in terms of things that we need to do.
By way of the process, you mentioned that it will be a piece of legislation that will be introduced if it is indeed passed,
Right.
both by the House and the Senate, and signed by the governor. Would there be a commission established similar to New Jersey?
I think it probably will. I think there'll be some type of oversight commission, a commission that will look at it from an enforcement standpoint, that will issue license, things of that nature. And we need that. I mean, we need some that people who have some knowledge and understands. And basically, in state government case, most of the entities are boards or commissions that are set up and that we look at. So I say this to you, and again, I want to stress the importance of it. I take this very serious. I don't think that we should take it for granted that it is a slam dunk. There are some issues whenever you start talking about gaming. I'm aware of those issues. I want to hear both sides, pro and con, and I'm open for whatever changes we can make. But the key thing is we need to look at the sources of revenue.
One, back to your insider point of view,
Right.
are there votes there for such a passage?
Yes, in 1999, I was able to get through the House, first time in my 23 years, a bill that dealt with a number of gaming initiatives. It had a referendum provision that was put in it, but it was in the state Senate, it was defeated on the basis of a constitutionality issues. But I was able to get it through the House. I do sense that members, and when members recognize things like economic development and education and healthcare, things that they want to address, I think they want to look at other sources, because our income tax, our sales tax, our corporate net income tax, in my view, we cannot afford to continue raising the issue of taxes, because I think that at the end of the day, you know, the bottom line, we're going to chase people out of the city and out of the state. So those things we have to be extremely sensitive to. And from my standpoint, I just think that, you know, it's high time we look at these sources, and it will be decided. And if the members, if 102 and 26 in the Senate and governor's signature, it will be law. If not, then it will not be law, and we have to go back to the drawing board.
Final question, Representative Evans. If all things being on a positive that it does get passed, what is the greatest upside potential of these revenues?
The greatest upside is obviously providing sources of revenue for the purposes of economic development and education. We need to have what I call a growth strategy towards the future. We need to convince people that we got to expand the pie rather than have the pie shrink. The part of the problems we have in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania is that we have a shrinking pie. And whenever you have a shrinking pie, you have people turning against each other. Blacks against white, whites against black, women against men, and vice versa, and different religious groups. When you have an expanded pie, you have everybody can partake in that pie. So I think that this is just one source of revenue that should be considered. There will be some people, obviously, that will disagree with me, and they have a right to disagree with me. But I would say this to you. We need to have a discussion. It's long overdue. We need to put this on the table, and I hope people will weigh it very objectively and understand at the end of the day, we have to do something about the quality of life. We have to grow this economy. We have to move the state forward.
And with that, when we return, we'll be handling your business.
This episode of Handling Your Business is sponsored by Commerce Bank.
Welcome back to Handling Your Business. Our show topic is gambling on gambling, and we want to offer the juxtaposition about the whole issue of riverboat, racino, or any type of gambling. And I'm here with Reverend Shine, who's the president of the Black Clergy of the Philadelphia vicinity. He's also pastor of Baraka Baptist Church. Welcome to Handling Your Business.
Thank you for having us join you today.
What is the gamble on gambling in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Well, there's an old proverb that a fool and his money soon part. Gambling, of course, is a moral issue rather than a legal or a legislative one. And so from the Christian perspective, from the community of faith perspective, gambling is an immoral practice. The get rich quick, the easy money, the luck of the draw, the shooting of the dice, all of these tend to demoralize rather than to empower people, as is suggested by those advocates of the gambling legislation.
What specific kinds of downsides are there when it comes to gambling?
Well, there is the gambling addiction, of course. It does have a very negative effect on family. It also breeds crime. It breeds the worst of crimes. All crimes are very bad, but it breeds prostitution. It breeds the community of the gambling community breeds not only prostitution and drugs, but it also breeds a lot of alcoholism. These are the downsides.
Why is alcoholism related to gambling?
Well, when a person cannot or does not find himself winning, then he has to find some solution out. And one of those solutions is to turn to drinking. And drinking then becomes a very serious social problem because it impacts on the home, it impacts on the relationships, it impacts on the employment. Gambling cannot have a positive effect anywhere in society, and this is evident in Nevada, Atlantic City, Mississippi, where gambling was thought to be a panacea of some sort. But just the reverse of that has happened. And I believe that to bring gambling to Pennsylvania, that it will attract the poorer, those who can least afford to be exposed or involve themselves in gambling, and therefore they lose. They are the double losers. There can't be a double winner, but there can be a double loser. They lose their family, they lose their job, they lose their home, they lose their social status. They turn to those kind of issues that impact negatively on our society. And the church's position is, if we're going to have a healthy moral society, then gambling cannot be one of those things that could support that.
Well, let me just, and I don't want to say devil's advocate, but when lotteries in churches such as bingo and others, is that different?
Well, no. In some of the communities of faith, particularly the Catholic Church, while they have always embraced the idea of bingo and the like, but the Protestant Church has not. We have not seen fit that there is a moral, there is a commandment, two commandments that come to mind, the third commandment and the 10th commandment. The 10th commandment, of course, being thou shalt not covet. Gambling is a form of covetousness. I would think that our legislators who we have elected would find some more acceptable way to generate funds for public education. I think that if there was a real strong effort to look elsewhere and not to the gambling business, not to make the fat cats of the gambling industry rich or richer, but rather to empower the people by providing the kind of legislation that would bring about a better opportunity to provide funds for funding a system like Philadelphia. We need the funds, but we don't need it from the gambling industry.
People that are for gambling would argue that it brings more revenue into the coffers of the municipality. You said that there was negative impacts, social impacts. How has that drained the Treasury to deal with them?
Well, when you have to look at Atlantic City, those oversized hotels, how has the residents of Atlantic City benefited? What has been brought to Atlantic City that the people's quality of life is improved? What has the gambling industry in Atlantic City done? As a case in point, I'm aware that in the state of Nevada, that as a result, direct result of gambling, the suicide rate is number one. I'm aware that murder, crime, out of wedlock birth, all of these are attributable to the gambling industry in the state of Nevada. Atlantic City is no different. There's been significant increase in crime. The quality of life of Atlantic City residents have not improved significantly, but many have been displaced. Is that what gambling will do? Would the racetrack, would the slots, would all of these bring an improved quality of life to the people? Is that what our legislators are thinking. Can they think above the immoral and think of the moral and bring about a better quality of life that's wholesome and that creates an atmosphere where crime is reduced, violence is reduced, drugs is reduced or removed? That's the kind of life that the church would advocate and not be supportive of gambling.
Reverend Sean, would there be any check or balance that could be put in place that would make it a little more palatable, such as a commission?
If the Pennsylvanians supported the gambling being brought to our state, then by all means there needs to be some checks and balances, such as a commission being put in place. But the church will always maintain, the Protestant church particularly, will always maintain opposition against any form of gambling, notwithstanding a commission. If in fact a commission has to be put in place, then it ought to be made up of those a cross-section of citizens to give our society and way of life some assurances that the organized crime will not infiltrate and influence, that it will not be something that takes rather than give. What can we hope to derive from the industry of gambling? What can we hope? Where in our country has it proven that gambling has turned the state around, whether in education, job creation, but then what is the other side? What has been the expenditure in order to maintain a gambling industry in the state? There's been a lot of young people, a lot of families who have been impacted. Some have had to have clinical studies done. Some have had to have put in some kind of program. Others have suffered a great deal of losses, loss of homes, and I've already indicated broken families. I've already indicated the increase in drugs, crime, murder, prostitution, illicit sex and all. These are some of the negatives that gambling breeds. Now, does our society want that? It may create more policemen, so jobs for policemen, but in terms of the impact, I think would be far more negative than it would be positive.
Well, the issue of gambling, as you've heard, is far from being resolved, and it's going to be the subject of a lot of debate and a lot of scrutiny in the future. So the issue of gambling is a gamble. When we come back, we'll be handling your business.